Hey guys, it's Joe from GadgetryTech.com, and today we are reviewing the Elite Series 2 controller from Microsoft. This is the most advanced state-of-the-art console controller on the market according to Microsoft, obviously for Xbox. Now, because it supports Bluetooth and has USB-C, you can connect this to a smartphone such as Android or iOS devices, provided it is compatible. But with that being said, the main intent is for Xbox One, so we're going to review it against that. Now, it's $180, so it's not the least expensive controller on the market. In fact, it's the most expensive controller on the market. So we're going to factor that in. And at the end of this review, we're going to ask that one dying question. Is it worth $180? So why don't we take a look at what you get inside, what kind of customization we can make on the hardware. Then we'll look at the software and what kind of changes you can make on the controller settings. From there, we'll play with it and then give us our final thoughts at the end and see what you guys think. So stay tuned. Let's dive in. Okay, so we unboxed everything that's inside, and let's quickly go through the paperwork. You get a 14-day subscription to Game Pass Ultimate, which is cool. Basic manual basically telling you how to plug it in, install the thumbsticks, etc. So we're not going to spend too much time on the paperwork. And then, of course, the regulatory guide. So let's look at what's important, and that's what comes in the box for hardware. Now, you do get this really nice carrying case. It's strong enough to actually be kind of in the middle of a soft case and a hard case. It is reinforced, which is nice. One huge standout feature right off the bat is you can notice there's a cable coming out of the back of the case. If we flip this upside down and look at it, there is a USB-C cable included. It's a 9-foot cable braided, and it inserts very well right into the case. Now, if you don't want to carry this with you, this little cover will flip down and you can plug it in to seal the case up. But I do like that you can charge it while it's in the case. So now that we've talked about the cable, the fact that it's USB-C, which is awesome, let's finish talking about power first. Now you get this little chargeable dock, if you will, or a docking station for your controller. It magnetically snaps into the case. So once that's in there, it doesn't fall out. Even though this is actually pretty heavy, the magnet is strong enough where you can turn this case upside down and it will not fall out. So that's kind of nice. So anyway, that's the power. Now, when the controller is placed on the case, there is a little bit of a magnetic force that helps put up or keep the tension as well, so you have a strong connection. Not strong enough where it lifts the case up when you lift it out. So it's a really well-designed setup as far as how to plug the dock charger in the case, how to charge the controller in the case, but of course it functions just as well outside of it. So going at the accessories, you can tell there's a few thumbsticks included. You get 6 thumbsticks total. These are the standard ones that you get on a traditional Xbox on a new controller. They're a little bit smaller and they have this ridge which gives you really good grip. So if you're concerned with first-person shooters or a lot of fast pace, this should give you the best performance as far as keeping your thumb on the stick. Now you get a classic thumbstick, which is this dome shape. Instead of concave, it's actually convex and it sticks out. So depending on what kind of feel you want, you do get that one. And these are super easy to switch out, by the way. It's magnetic, so I can pull this right off and then place this on, and you can actually hear it kind of click into place. So it's a really smart design. I think the magnets could be even stronger, to be honest, because it's so easy to pull in on and off that you want to make sure it doesn't ever snag anything like a necklace or a cable if you're moving it around. Then you have these smooth thumbsticks. These are a little bit wider disc. They give you a little bit more leverage, which is nice, and I'll talk about that in a moment. However, they have no extra grip or ridge at the end. It's just concave and it's smooth. So depending on the feel that you like. Then this last cap or thumbstick here, there's 2 versions of this. Let's put them both side by side. You have the traditional length and then the tall one. So if you play in first-person shooters or you've transitioned from control freaks like I have, you're going to want to use this guy, at least on the right thumbstick. Now, with the Elite 2, or Series 2, you only get 1 tall stick. So I'm not a huge fan of that because they actually gave us a different type of thumbstick that doesn't have the traditional shape. So some people might like that depending on what your preferences are, but if you wanted the tall sticks, you only get 1. So take that for what you will. And then, of course, the D-pad is interchangeable. This is magnetic as well, and it's also metallic. So it's a very nice feeling piece, and you can put a traditional D-pad that you see down here. So let's talk about a couple other things. The paddle is underneath, also magnetic. I left 2 of them out so you can see what it looks like. They snap right into place, and even if you pulled it out or snagged it, the magnet is strong enough to pull it right back in, which is awesome. To take it out, just bend it all the way back and it's a piece of cake. Put it back in here, and boom, it snaps back into place. These don't have a lot of tension. It feels good for speed, However, it is not strong enough to where the weight of the controller will not press it down. Basically, if you're holding it like this, the weight of the controller is high enough where it will press the thumbstick in for you, or the back paddles. So keep that in mind depending on how you like to hold the controller. It does take some getting used to. And then the other thing I want to point out, this little tool right here, this is new to the Series 2. And super important if you like to play with the tall thumbstick. Simply pop that off. And you can tell there's a little tooth, a notch, if you will, right at the top of the thumbstick. This key, when turned clockwise, will actually tighten it. So now there's more tension in the thumbstick. And if you play with an extended thumbstick, you want a little bit of tension because you want to have a lot of control. You don't want it to move a little bit too much, especially in like a high pressure, high stress situation and your thumb's going all over the place. I like that you can do that. The only drawback that I've seen is the left one on the weakest setting is stiffer than the traditional setting on a normal Xbox controller. So the base controller is actually softer than this, and this won't go any softer than how it comes out of the box. So you can actually notice a little bit of left thumb fatigue if you're used to playing on a controller like the original Xbox controller. So I just wanted to point out the tension's a little weird. I wish the left thumbstick was a little bit softer because I feel like that would be a better match to the stock controller. And then you can still turn it up from there. I just think it gets a little too stiff, especially with a short controller. So let's talk about something else that's awesome. There are 3 customizable profiles on the controller. We're going to dive into that in a moment with the software. However, one light is profile 1. You press this middle button here and you get profile 2. That's 2 lights. And as you can tell, with 3 lights, that is profile 3. They say you get 3 profiles, but one thing I really like is when it's off, you get a default profile. So if you've custom mapped everything and you clone profiles and lost the B button because you can't go back and exit the guide or whatever it may be, simply turn off all the lights and now you have a stock Xbox One controller, which will make it very easy to fix and reassign these profiles. So I love that they give you a default controller profile setting as an option as well. So let's go into the software. We'll use the controller a little bit and give you guys our final thoughts and see how this thing goes. Okay guys, so we're going to take a quick look at the Xbox Accessories app, and this is what you use to customize the Elite Series 2 controller. So I'm going to hit A on Configure, and here we have the profiles that are assigned to each of the LEDs that show up on the front of the controller. We're going to edit the one that I have titled COD, so let's click on the pencil here. And all the buttons, we're not going to spend too much time on this because naturally you can assign any button to any spot. What's cool and what's a new addition, however, are actions that you can assign to a button. So we're going to edit one now. And what's nice about this, the lower left paddle, I can actually have it set to do different things instead of just hitting like B or X or whatever it may be. You can launch apps, you can control media. Some of my favorites are taking screenshots and recording without having to go through the guide. So if you're playing a game and you just want to take a quick screen grab or video highlight, in case you did something cool, you can do that. Send messages, see your party, change the TV volume, etc. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. I think that's an awesome add-on, and you can't do that on any other controllers. That was a great feature enhancement. We're going to go to the left stick. Now you have to hit down on the D-pad before you start moving the left stick. Otherwise it just changes the screen anyway. So if I do just a little bit of movement, you can see it. But if I do it a lot, it changes. So we're going to hit down on the D-pad. And now the assignment is highlighted on the left, I can actually finally tweak this. Not going to spend too much time on this because there's a lot to explain here. It's going to eat up review time. But you can change the default response curve on each thumbstick, and you can do them separately. So if you want instant, the blue that you see is my new calibration, and the white behind it is what the stock linear default calibration is. So you can see how it impacts the thumbstick movement versus what's detected on the actual console itself. So if you need to do some fine tuning there, you can. I tend to prefer as linear as possible, but again, I don't want much of a dead zone. So there we go. And then the calculation here, radial is the new thing that they offered for the Elite controllers after firmware update. It basically gives you better detection on diagonals. So, as long as you're exceeding that outer boundary of that circle with full motion, whichever method you use is fine. Right thumbstick is the same way, and you can change it independently, like I said. And then the triggers. So here's what's cool. Right now I have both triggers
set differently from each other. The left trigger has full motion, so I'm going to squeeze that now, and you can see I have plenty of smooth control over that. This is great for a racing game, leaving it on that largest setting, which is basically the top setting on the controller, gives you full control. If I do the right side, right now you're going to see it's almost like an on-off switch. I have it set to level 1, which basically almost locks the trigger to very little movement. If you go very slow, you can see it will still detect an analog signal. It's just extremely fast. So ideally, if you're not playing a racing game, you're playing a shooter, you want this because you want the gun to fire the second you pull the trigger. You don't want it to wait until it's like, let's say about here, because a lot of games they're set to about the 50% mark before it finally detects the shot, depending on the game. So I like that ability. I think that's a huge thing for first-person shooters. Vibration, you can actually set the vibration motors independently on each trigger. The triggers vibrate separately from the main controller itself. So you get a lot of control here. I lowered this quite a bit because I don't need that level of intensity happening as I'm pulling the trigger. I already know there's a lot of action going on if I am pulling the trigger. So, and then brightness, honestly, you can adjust this as much as you want. Let's try to get back to it. It really didn't make a noticeable difference on that LED at all. It's like instead of 100%, it brings it to 80, and it's not that bright to begin with. So that's the UI portion of the controller. We're going to get into some gameplay and really put this thing through its paces and give you guys our final thoughts.
Okay guys, so I've played on this controller for a few days now on Modern Warfare, and there is a glaring issue with the right thumbstick, and apparently I'm not alone. I talked to my buddy who bought one as well, and he noticed the same thing. So if you look on the right thumbstick, it might look like it's leaning slightly to the left. Well, that's because it is. There is a huge dead zone, to me an unacceptable dead zone, on the right thumbstick, which guess what? That's your aiming thumbstick. I would have tolerated it more on the left because that's where you move around. But most games you aim with the right thumbstick. And if you're trying to be very quick and responsive on a competitive setting, look how much I can lean this and it stays there. There's that much play in the thumbstick. So it won't do anything in this whole range. So if you're moving your thumb that much, nothing is actually happening on the screen. And for a $180 controller, that's completely unacceptable. By comparison, if I were to look at a Control Freak thumbstick, now this is a stock controller using a Control Freak add-on. We're going to put this right on top. Look at the difference. It's actually tighter. And when I move it, like right now, that's catching on both sides. So it's actually a tighter dead zone than the Elite Series 2. I mean, look at that. That's pretty drastic. That's about 50 to 70% more dead zone before it actually does anything. So that's how much wiggle room you get. So if you're a competitive player, huge no-no. All right, guys, so that wraps up the review. And as you just saw, the right thumbstick having that much wiggle room is kind of a deal breaker. This is a $180 controller. It's almost as much as an Xbox One S if you can get a good deal on it. That's crazy to have that kind of an issue on that expensive of a controller. If anything, the dead zone should be non-existent and there should be drift on the screen, which means when you're not touching it, you should see slight movement on the screen because the tolerance is so tight. And then you use software to fine-tune that dead zone to eliminate anything that's there. That way you get the best possible performance. I have no idea how that didn't happen as a feature on a controller like this because it's so important. So if you get an Elite Series 2 controller and it does not have the right stick dead zone issue that I have with its that much wiggle room, it's going to be a great controller. It has a 40-hour sealed battery, which means you can't change the battery, so that kind of stinks. However, the only reason why you get a 40-hour battery is because the controller is sealed and they can put a much larger battery in it. Another thing I noticed while I was playing with this as a positive is there is a rubberized grip that wraps around both sides of the controller, and it does feel really nice, especially when you go back to a stock controller that is all plastic. I love that rubberized texture. So battery life was excellent. I haven't had to charge it since I fully charged it right in the beginning. You can adjust the vibration strength or disable it entirely if you want the battery to last a super long time. However, the performance has been great. The triggers is great with the exception of that right thumbstick, which if you play competitive first-person shooters, is a deal breaker in my opinion. So if you're thinking about buying one, make sure you get one where you can inspect the right thumbstick and it's not loose. And if you did buy one because you couldn't inspect it, check it while you still have your return policy and do yourself a favor and return it if that dead zone is still there. Because I can tell you, a stock controller with a Control Freak thumbstick on it which is only $15 add-on, is a better performer in first-person shooters when it comes to aim than my Elite Series 2 has been. So I hope you found this review helpful, and if you did or you like what you see, please don't forget to subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, shoot me a comment below. Thank you guys for watching this review, and I'll see you next time.